Out comes a Kentucky Fried Chicken, Bird of Death. We see the pivot back into Zapdos, but we're already below half health. Zapdos gonna fire off the Drill Peck bait. Drill Peck forces the opponent's final Protect Shield, which means only one thing. Zapdos about to remind Talonflame who's the king of the skies. Welcome back to the channel. Today we get the pleasure of shoutcasting one of them OG Kanto legendaries at Shadow Zapdos. Good old Zappy Boy has always been a personal favourite of mine to use in this format. However, over the recent seasons, it's been quite difficult to use. However, this season, Mudslap got a huge buff, meaning there are a lot of ground types, something that Zapdos will certainly have play into. We've also seen other flyers rise up the rankings, stuff like Drifblim and Mandibars, two other things that Zapdos cannot wait to get his claws into. Huge shout out to the very appropriately named Misteralgorithm for the battle submission. He is bringing us a triple shadow team. We've got Steelix, essentially offering some much needed bulk to the paper thin Zapdos and Feraligatr. Without any further ado, let's get into the battle. And in game one, we see the battle of the legendary flyers. I actually had to check the typing. I was like, there is no shot someone's using a regular Kanto Moltres. It's actually the Galarian and just the shiny variant. An insane flex from this opponent. We shield up the Ancient Power, full send the Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt goes unshielded. Zapdos claims its first of hopefully many one-shot victims in today's showcase. Out comes Drapion. Zapdos unleashes the Drill Peck, forcing the opponent's first Protect Shield. Zapdos just so incredibly spammy. Already at the next Drill Peck. Drill Peck, only a 40 energy move, but still does half the opponent's health. We then pivot into Steelix, which will probably be operating as the third, fourth, and fifth shield on today's team. The opponent firing off Aqua Tail after Aqua Tail. And here's one of the reasons I personally don't run Aqua Tail on Shadow Drapion. Despite that being super effective, it just tickled the very bulky Steelix. The opponent then sends out Cresselia, which also has a pretty negative matchup into Steelix. They fire off the neutral Grass Knot. Steelix once again withstands the damage, returns fire with the Earthquake, getting Cresselia below half health. Misteralgorithm not wanting to get farmed down pivots into Gator. Gator going to invest the Protect Shield, blocking up the incoming Grass Knot. Misteralgorithm looking to farm up to the double Hydro Cannons, but unfortunately that looks like a charge attack priority event. The first Hydro Cannon forces the opponent's final Protect Shield. Cresselia also hits like a wet noodle, so this Grass Knot won't actually pick up the one-hit KO. The opponent fire off the Grass Knot, then pivot back out into Drapion. Drapion going to be greeted with the Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon removes Drapion from the field of play. Cresselia attempts the Psycho Cut farm down, but pvpokes #1 ranked pick says no, grinning away, fires off the next Hydro Cannon and sweeps the back line. In the next battle, we'll lead Zappy Boy into Drapion. Thankfully, this is the regular variant of Drapion, as when it's Shadow on Shadow Crime, a crunch is absurd damage. To be honest, that crunch still did far too much. The opponent then banks an Aqua Tail for the road. Send out Talonflame. Trainer, do you have a death wish? We full send the Thunderbolt. Which unfortunately goes shielded. We then pivot into Gator. Gator, going to invest the Protect Shield, blocking up a potential Brave Bird. The opponent fire off the Fly. Misteralgorithm undeterred. Going to fire off 4 Shadow Claws before unleashing the Hydro Cannon. Looking to remove this Firebird of Death from the field of play. Hydro Cannon goes unshielded. Misteralgorithm finds himself a very healthy Gator with residual energy good to go. Out comes Venusaur. We farm to the Ice Beam bait with the Hydro Cannon. The opponent actually catch it back onto Drapion, and we're not really complaining as 2 Hydro Cannons will remove this Scorpion from the field of play. As of the non-shadow variant, this crunch actually won't knock us out. Gator able to withstand the damage, fire off the next Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon likely goes unshielded, with the opponent putting all the hopes and dreams onto Venusaur. However, Venusaur is going to be greeted with the ever annoying Steel Snake. Today's battles are played above 3000 elo, and you can see Misteralgorithm's high gameplay IQ. Rather than conceding the farm down to Venusaur, we pivot out into Steelix. We shield up the first Frenzy Plant, tank the second, and Misteralgorithm full sending the Earthquake, knowing the opponent likely look to call a bait, knowing the Drill Peck will knock him out. Earthquake also secures the knockout, and we take that game. Very, very well played. Heading into the next battle, we see Zapdos into yet another Drapion. What is going on? That's my channel mascot. How dare other people use it? I'm just kidding. It's interesting that we've seen most of the Drapion in the lead position, whereas I tend to utilise mine as a safe switch. As I said previously, Shadow on Shadow Crime, a crunch does absurd damage. The opponent actually baited us with an Aqua Tail. We full send a Thunderbolt, forcing our Protect Shield back. Then look to catch the potential crunch onto Steelix. Very, very nice play. The opponent unfortunately get the defense drop, and out comes Annihilate. The defense drop in this scenario might not actually be the worst thing, as if the opponent commits to a full counter farm down, which it looks like they're doing, they are actually going to get less farm as we've got a -1 defense. However, that being said, it does mean we miss out on the next Psychic Fang. We send back out a Zapdos. As long as this isn't an Ice Punch, we will survive the Rage Fist. We actually do not play to the charge attack priority, which Zapdos would have won. Instead, we're actually just going to completely sack Zapdos and put all our hopes and dreams on Gator. The opponent not wanting to get farmed down, pivot out into Primeape, a very cool double 8 team. Shout out this opponent. I might actually try this team myself tomorrow. Unfortunately for Mr. Algorithm, he's just going to be overwhelmed by charge moves. Primeape, so incredibly spammy, and Drapion is still alive. Mr. Algorithm going to play it out, but unfortunately I think this one will end in defeat. We shield up the Rage Fist, farm up to the double Hydro Cannon. This Hydro Cannon will be removing Primeape from the field of play, and we're very much in danger of getting Poison Stung farmed down. Mr. Algorithm recognises that, and he's going to concede the match. GG's to that opponent. In the next battle, we see Zapdos into Optimus Prime, a god-awful matchup. We see the save switch into Gator, baiting out Tentacruel. I see a lot of people run Crunch on their Gator for this matchup specifically. However, you don't actually need it, because if Tentacruel goes straight for a Scald and they don't get the attack drop, they're unable to Poison Jab farm down before you reach 2 further Hydro Cannons, which will either knock out or force a Protect Shield here in the mid-game. And it looks like we're actually going to see that scenario play out. The second Hydro Cannon does well over half the opponent's remaining HP. Mr. Algorithm fires off the next Hydro Cannon at the last second, leaving minimal farm for the opponent should they wish to no shield. Shadow Feraligatr really showcasing why it's pvpokes #1 ranked pick, putting in so much work here in the mid game. We send out Zapdos, look for the Thundershock farm down. Unfortunately, we're unable to get it. Squidward fires off the Acid Spray, then attempt to snipe with Zygarde. We pivot into Steelix, baiting out Gator. Steelix, you sir, really need to start cheesing your way through the remainder of the team. The opponent don't shield the first Psychic Fangs. Mr. Algorithm going to invest to protect shield, blocking up the incoming Hydro Cannon. And here's a fun fact for you all. Despite Hydro Cannon only costing 40 energy, a Shadow Hydro Cannon from Feraligatr actually has more than a Stab Earthquake from Zygarde. That's just how much of a wet noodle Optimus Prime is. Mr. Algorithm invests his final Protect Shield, goes for that wham, bam, combo play. Zapdos claimed yet another victim. In fairness, they were very low. Back out comes Optimus Prime. We send back out Steelix. This isn't even an Earthquake. This is just a Cruncher. Perhaps the opponent doesn't even have Earthquake. The opponent doesn't get the defense drop either. Mr. Algorithm continuing to farm up, knowing the next Crunch will not knock us out. He's looking to get off as much Dragon Tail damage as he physically can. He's going to fire off the Earthquake at the last second. Please tell me this Earthquake's lethal. Earthquake! Let's go. Picks up the knockout, and we take that game. What a win! Since Steelix received the Break and Swipe nerf, it's rarely seen, but you can tell from that battle, it still puts in work in the next battle. We see another Galarian Moltres in the lead. Once again, there is no baiting. Does the opponent respect the damage? Thunderbolt! Unfortunately, goes shielded. This looks like such a scuffed matchup. Despite our Thundershocks being super effective and their Sucker Punches only being neutral, the Sucker Punches are doing like twice as much as our Thundershocks. Once again, we full send a Thunderbolt, forcing the opponent all shields down. The opponent commits to that full Sucker Punch farm down. We send out Steelix to operate as the damage sponge. The opponent sends out Gator. We bank the Psychic Fang for the road and then enter the mirror. We see the instant no shield deployed on the incoming Hydro Cannon. Shadow and Shadow Crime, 2 resisted Hydro Cannons and the residual Shadow Claws are enough to knock out in this matchup. You're going to see the opponent's next Hydro Cannon will remove us from the field of play. The opponent actually plays it super risky, playing to charge attack priority. The opponent must have a very attack-weighted Gator. A very high-risk, high-reward play from our opponent, and they are rewarded as they're able to force our final Protect Shield as they were doubled up. And then they make a savage catch as well, catching the Earthquake back onto Moltres. Holy moly. Very well played from that opponent. GG's. In the next battle, we see Zapdos into Primeape. The opponent opting to stay in. Thankfully, they don't farm to an Ice Punch, as if they did, I'd definitely be tempted to shield. The opponent fire off the Rage Fist. Speaking of Steelix cheesing its way through matchups, the opponent could probably just double shield here and resisted Karate Chop farm down. It looks like that's exactly what the opponent's looking to do. Mr. Algorithm, looking to force the opponent's final Protect Shield, blocks up the next Rage Fist, and this Primeape could very quickly get out of hand. We unleash the next Drill Peck. The opponent invests that Protect Shield. We then pivot into Gator, and we now find ourselves in the bait game. Rage Fist would be survivable, close combat would not. We shield up the Rage Fist, look to fire off the Hydro Cannon, unfortunately losing CMP. The opponent fire off yet another Rage Fist. Oh my gosh, that did so much damage. Finally, this Primeape is removed from the field of play, but has deleted almost 2 Pokemon. The opponent temporarily send out the basic Bitch Tin Can, then show us Squidward. Despite us having an Earthquake on Steelix, it's not going to be able to 1v2 in the zero shield scenario, so we are going to concede the match. In the next battle, we see Shadow Zapdos into G-Weezy. Misteralgorithm fires off the hard-hitting Thunderbolt that does so much damage. We then make the catch onto Steelix, hopefully not catching it overheat. Thankfully, it's only a brutal swing. The opponent then pivots out into Gator. And this is a matchup where Steelix quite literally could cheese its way through it, should it so wish. That is because Psychic Fang comes with a 100% chance to debuff the opponent's defense, meaning the Dragon Tail damage just adds up progressively over time. Misteralgorithm actually knows his Steelix is able to survive a Hydro Cannon and still reach the next Psychic Fangs, essentially getting Gator very low in the zero shield scenario. Misteralgorithm sends out his own Gator. The game doesn't even give us our Shadow Claw. My god, this game is so trash. The opponent then not wanting to get farmed down, send back out G-Weezy. Misteralgorithm still with 2 Protect Shields, 2 high behind, still unwilling to shield. The opponent fire off the brutal swing. At this point, we are going to shield, go for the Shadow Claw farm down, and look to leave absolutely loaded. Whatever the opponent sends out, we'll still be switch locked. I guess whatever they had in the back, despite having 2 shields to hide behind, didn't want the smoke as they concede the match. In the next battle, we see that OG, a former top meta Kingpin, Giratina, not particularly good for Zapdos, so we utilise the Shadow Gator say switch. The opponent goes for some chip and dip action before sending out Squidward. I really like that chip and dip from the opponent. We've already seen a counter swap Tentacruel has to invest a Protect Shield when they counter swap into Gator, so a really smart play, meaning they're going to be able to keep that super positive alignment and it isn't even going to cost them a Protect Shield. Players above 3000 elo tend to know how to play matchups, and I really like the way the opponent has played this matchup to this point. Although, of course, I am rooting for Misteralgorithm to pick up the dub. We send out Zapdos, a Zapdos going to be greeted with the Scold. Tentacle doesn't hit particularly hard, but you'd be excused for thinking it was very attack weighted as that does so much damage. We pivot into Steelix, the opponent sends out Gator, and I think this is going to be the scenario where we're going to see Steelix attempt to cheese its way through matchups. Call me Mystic Meg. I'm anticipating Misteralgorithm 2 shielding here, looking to force both shields off the opponent and then looking to snipe with a Drill Peck. Let's see if the opponent anticipate that play. We do invest the next Protect Shield, blocking up the next incoming Hydro Cannon. Misteralgorithm gonna fire off the Psychic Fangs after this. Our switch timer will be up. We go for the catch. Holy cow. I really am Mystic Meg. The opponent makes a very nice catch, anticipating us looking to snipe. It's so satisfying, shoutcast and high elo battles, as you can see players thinking, like a game of chess, many moves ahead. We see the opponent actually stop attacking. Misteralgorithm just going to take the initiative, removing Giratina from the field of play. Our Zapdos is so low, the opponent isn't going to be able to reach a charge move. Gator comes in, gets the Shadow Claw farm down. Steelix is just about outside of Hydro Cannon range. Can we Dragon Tail farm down the remainder of the opponent's team? Unfortunately, we cannot, and the opponent does take a very well played game. GG's to both trainers. In the next battle, we see Zapdos into Gator. We're going to fire off the Drill Peck on the charge attack priority. Drill Peck goes unshielded. Unfortunately, despite this being a type advantage matchup, Zapdos does not fancy tanking a Hydro Cannon. We shield it up. We're not going to be able to Thunder Shock farm down before the next Hydro Cannon is reached. So we're going to bank our energy and catch the resisted move onto Gator. Again, a very nice play. The opponent answers our Gator say switch with Giratina. A pretty interesting counter swap as both our Shadow Claws and Ice Beam hit for super effective. The opponent invests a Protect Shield, blocking up the incoming Ice Beam. The opponent looking for that full Dragon Breath farm down. We're not going to reach the next Ice Beams. We're just willing to get off some chip damage with the resisted Hydro Cannon. Giratina's energy going to be pretty useless into Steelix, unless they've got Shadow Force, but even a Shadow Force won't do much to Steelix, as Steelix has 10 bazillion HP, even when in its Shadow form. Dragon Claw pretty much healed us, and that Shadow Sneak doesn't do much either. The opponent aggressively pivot into the Kentucky Fried Chicken. Bird of Death, we pivot out into Zapdos, that's already below half health. Misteralgorithm goes for the Drill Peck bait, which can only mean one thing. Zapdos about to remind Talonflame, who's the king of the skies? Get that Talonflame off my screen. Thunderbolt easily picks up that one-hit KO. We Thunder Shock farm down, and the opponent is going to concede the match, despite Giratina being alive on about 6 HP. But of course, that game was signed, sealed, and delivered. In the next battle, we see Zapdos into Gastrodon. A pretty nice matchup for us, unless the opponent's on Water Pulse. They're going to be forced to go for Body Slams, and Body Slam has been heavily nerfed. Mod Slap, usually pretty oppressive, but it is single resisted as flying, double resist ground, and electric does take super effective. We tank the body slam, fire off the correct one thunder shot and the next drill peck for optimal fast move time, and the opponent invest that protect shield, then send out drift blim. Misteralgorithm answer the drift blim safe switch with Shadow Gator. We go straight for the Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon isn't quite lethal. This is enough for a Shadow Ball. Misteralgorithm thinking about calling it. Misteralgorithm doesn't shield baits in his household. That is so satisfying, as I've been baited left, right and centre recently, and it's really starting to piss me off. I used to call myself the king of not shielding baits. However, recently I don't know what's going on. I don't really play that often, and I guess I've lost my balls. I'm hoping to rediscover them sometime in the not so distant future. The opponent sends out Galarian Moltres, and we answer with Steelix. The Sucker Punch damage is going to really start to add up. However, we should completely wall their moveset unless they're running Payback. However, I haven't seen a Payback Moltres in like forever. Most run Ancient Power and Brave Bird. The opponent fire off Ancient Power, fishing for the boost. The RNG gods say, not today, trainer. Steelix just going straight for the double resisted Psychic Fangs, just looking to add that Dragon Tail damage up more and more over time. The opponent fire off the Brave Bird. We withstand the damage. The opponent attempt to snipe with Gastrodon. Unsuccessfully, we save Steelix at minimal HP. Send out Gator, shield up the body slam, leaving with the Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon will be forcing the opponent's final Protect Shield. The opponent able to Sucker Punch, farm us down, but Zapdos only one off the Drill Peck, and Drill Peck from this range easily going to be enough to secure the dub. GG's, and thanks for playing. Unfortunately, heading into the final battle of today's shoutcast, huge shout out to Misteralgorithm, bringing us some very high IQ and very entertaining battles. In the final battle, we lead Zapdos into Drift Blim. This time we farm to the Thunderbolt bait with the Drill Peck, forcing a Protect Shield. Once again, despite Zapdos being a type advantage matchup, we just don't tank fast move pressure whatsoever. The Astonish is tearing us apart. We shield up the Icy Wind, and this time we're looking for that kill shot. Thunderbolt removes the balloon from the field of play. Out comes Tentacruel. Misteralgorithm commits to the next Thunderbolt. Trainer, I promise we're short. Thunderbolt goes unshielded, and even debuff. My gosh, that still does so much damage. Anyone that plays Ultra will know just how ridiculously bulky Tentacruel is. A -1 Thunderbolt still did like 70%. We send out Steelix, the opponent fire off the Scald, then send out Cobalion. I like us throwing the Psychic Fang here, forcing a debuff on Cobalion's defense, meaning the Shadow Claws and Hydro Cannons are just going to do even more damage. Potentially at -1, after 4 further Shadow Claws, we might actually remove Cobalion from the field of play. Is this Hydro Cannon enough to knock out? Hydro Cannon actually forces the opponent's final Protect Shield, the opponent continuing to farm up energy, allowing Gator to reach the next Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon does pick up the knockout. Tentacruel doesn't want the smoke, and the opponent concedes the match. Misteralgorithm, that was phenomenal. That is one of the most fun shoutcasts I've done in forever. Huge shout out to you, buddy. GG's, and keep up the good work. So if you're enjoying the content, smash that like button. If you're new, consider subscribing if you'd also like your battles featured on my channel. My battle submission form is linked down below. And as always, a huge thank you to everyone for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.